Restorative justice evolved from the search for more productive ways of dealing with crime than just putting more and more people away in prison. It means restoring victims, restoring offenders, and restoring communities. It's about the idea that because crime hurts, justice should heal. In a typical process, you'll first have the victim approach. The victim will be asked to say who they would like to come along to support them through the ordeal. Then the offender would be approached in the same way, and supporters of the offender with the offender come together with the victim, and the victim's supporters, a facilitator. They sit in a circle. First, they'll talk about what happened, who was hurt by what happened, and what might be done to right the wrong. They'll come up with a plan of action, and then there'll be follow-up to check that the plan of action is actually implemented to the satisfaction of all the stakeholders. So the selection principle is exactly the opposite to that in a criminal trial. In a criminal trial, you invite along to the trial those who can inflict most damage on the other side. With the Restorative Justice Conference, you invite along those who can offer most support. Now, there's been a lot of research on the effectiveness of these conferences and other restorative justice processes now. For example, Heather Strang and Lawrence Sherman here at the Australian National University have done work in Canberra where they've randomly assigned 1,400 criminal offenders to a traditional criminal trial versus a restorative justice conference. And what they found is that levels of satisfaction, both on the victim side and the offender side, on the part of the police and the community, are higher in the cases that go to a restorative justice conference than in the cases that go to court. Now, that research also shows that remorse is important, that in cases where reoffending is less likely, they will be cases where the offender comes to a position of remorse about what he or she has done, as opposed to denial, as opposed to hooking up to the kind of emotional resources that criminal subcultures provide to offenders. So the criminal subcultures provide offenders with a whole range of different kinds of scripts for allowing you to reject your rejectors, to saying those who are accusing you of terrible things, they're really the bad people, they're really the ones who got what they deserve. That's the thing that we want through a more conversational form of regulation to break through, to break down, to help the offender to see the harm that he or she really has done to their victims. And this is why in the way that I think theoretically about restorative justice processes, shame is very important. Criminal justice processes are always heavily laden with shame. It's not possible to have something like a criminal trial without a lot of shame being felt, maybe suppressed, displaced shame, so that the shame is projected back onto those who are accusing you. But shame there is, and usually in a deep form. Now, how do we distinguish between the form of shame that leads to feelings of remorse and counterproductive forms of shame that lead you to blame others for what's happened rather than take responsibility for it yourself? The distinction I make is between reintegrative shaming, which is a productive form of confronting people about what they've done wrong, and stigmatisation. Now, in stigmatisation, what we do is we say, you're a bad person who has done a bad thing. In reintegrative shaming, the message we're trying to communicate is that we believe you're an essentially good person who has done a bad thing, and we want to discuss why there were these bad consequences of what you've done, and what it is that you might be able to do to transcend that harm to repair, the harm to make good, to go on to be an even better person than the essentially good person we believe you to be. And that's why reintegration is very important. One thing that a lot of people are concerned about, of course, is whether this is more effective in reducing crime, in reducing reoffending, than traditional criminal process. Well, as more and more evidence has been accumulated on that evidence has become more and more encouraging. Large number of studies now that have been reviewed by the Canadian Department of Justice showing that cases that go to a restorative process have lower levels, statistically significantly lower levels of reoffending compared to cases that go to the court. And rather more encouraging is that there's kind of the second generation restorative justice programs that have been crafted since 1996 have much greater effectiveness than programs that were designed before 1996. So we seem to be learning how to do this stuff better. So the idea of having so many people in the circle is that you're not relying on the facilitator to come up with solutions. You're empowering the creativity, the ideas, the contributions that many different citizens coming at the problem from different angles can make to solving it. The very first conference I ever attended was in Wagga in New South Wales, and as we were arriving at the conference with the facilitator, we met the mother of the 14-year-old girl who was the offender in this case. She was a big-time burglar who was actually cleaning out houses. She was homeless, living on the street, making a life as a professional burglar. We arrived at the conference venue. The mother of this girl was there, arriving at the same time. She said to the facilitator, "I'm not happy about being here, The facilitator says, "Give it a try, let's just see how we go," and caresses and cajoles her into entering into the conference room to give the restorative justice process a try. As she comes into the room where the conference is being held, she sees her daughter already sitting in the circle and says to her, "I'll kill you, you little bitch," to which the daughter says something slightly more appropriate like, "Hi, Mum." We get on with the conference. We're only 2 or 3 minutes into it, and Mum is up, points a shaking finger at her daughter, saying, "This is a load of nonsense. She should be punished," storms out of the conference. I look across to the facilitator saying, "Well, this is my first experience of a conference. It's really a great process, isn't it?" And in practice, it actually was a successful conference, because what then happened at the conference is that the victims who also arrived at the conference, very angry, had a very different kind of insight into the kind of circumstances this girl was in that was causing her to be a homeless child living on the streets of Wagga. And indeed other members of the extended family had a different way of looking at the circumstances of this 14-year-old girl.